Yeah.
Look, they're dying laughing how stupid he is, right? Are they laughing at him?
What are they laughing at? What's going on?
With his sister Charlie, and they do have an awesome organization that goes back. You remember that? Yeah, almost 20 years. I've been involved in a long time. We want kids to maximize their potential.
Now, and we're
This portion of Sports Adrenaline Las Vegas brought to you in part by Livia's Seasoning Salt. The perfect combination of kosher salt, black pepper, and
Can't
garlic.
hear out here.
Livia's Seasoning Salt. Every kitchen, every table, every meal.
Wow, Spurs and Warriors. I'm so surprised. I can't even believe that happened. What are the odds?
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sports Adrenaline Las Vegas show. Tonight we are on the Shoots and Google's website, along with John Castanino, Matt Gutierrez, Rick Strasser, know you.
Every time.
We are here to talk about some of the hot topics in the local sports landscape. So,
It feels good to be on Shoots and Googles. It just feels good.
well,
doesn't it?
and let's just lay it
and
out
watch
there.
your fingers and when you're typing
Yeah.
Shoots and Googles.
Shoots, S-H-O-O-T-S.
I gotta be careful.
Okay.
Rick's over here
Spell it out.
cursing online.
But that's how
The product's
I am.
going to look better. We're going to be able to archive our shows a lot better. So there's a lot of reasons that we're doing it. So I get that it's, maybe a little easier to just click on Facebook Live and see it there. But we want to overall improve the quality of the product. That's why we're doing it. So please let us know what you think about it, the new change that we're going with.
So, some of the topics tonight. Will the Raiders Stadium be ready in time for the start of the 2020 season? That's one concern with the timeline that was reviewed today at the Stadium Authority meeting. Another is the lease agreement, which has to be completed in just a couple of weeks, and that's what we learned from today's meeting. We also learned that I don't play very well on Facebook when I start to rip other people that are ripping our city.
It was a boring Stadium Authority meeting. You
I
tried to
think-
spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, I had my comments. Well, someone in there was just being very negative about the whole process.
There's
And this was
somebody.
so we were watching on the Review
Facebook.
Journal.
The
Yeah, on
Review
Facebook.
Journal, yeah. It was their
shameless
site.
plug we shouldn't be plugging them, but that's where we were watching it.
So we were there. We'll talk about the Golden Knights. We'll talk about UNLV and what's happening on the sports scene there. John was at the Canelo Alvarez fight.
Terrible.
We'll get into that.
Terrible.
Did you expect any less?
And I think that, and monster trucks at the end. But
Well, we can't have a show without monster trucks.
let's start things off with today's meeting. And that lease agreement has to be completed by May the 23rd. The NFL owners will be meeting on that date, and they want to review the agreement. The next NFL owners meeting won't be until the fall, so this could set back this monstrosity of a timeline. Mark Burdane and the Raider officials were here as early as yesterday on Wednesday to meet with officials, and that's the first question I think that we have to approach is, will this be completed in time for kickoff of 2020?
Well, watching what I was watching today, they had a full agenda, but it seemed to me that they flew right through. I mean, they were, on agenda item 9, I think like an hour and a half into it. So it didn't seem to me where they were dragging through minutia, and they still might have to do that, Tony, to a certain extent. But it seems like it's an accelerated timeline, and they made it out to be that right away. But they seem to be plowing through the points that they need to plow through. The big thing that stood out to me, besides the lease agreement, they have 12 other agreements that they need to enter into. The lease agreement, top of the list, I guess 1A would be the joint use agreement with UNLV, but they've got 12 agreements to get done here to move this thing forward before they can break ground.
Yeah,
Well, I
that's
think
the
they're
impact
doing. I think
study.
they're doing some good things with this too, because they're also looking into the future a little bit with the capital expenses that have to be taken care of, and they don't want to run into the situation that's going on in Phoenix with Citi Field, because now you've got the Diamondbacks threatening to leave because they're not making the improvements to their stadium. So I know that's one of the issues that they're discussing and working out, that they set aside money now to be taken care of for later. When they get down the road and need improvements to the stadium, and also working out that of how they're going to attract national events. to, because they want to justify the $750 million. And I think the number they came up with is, 45 events a year that would justify that amount of the 750, which I don't think is going to be a problem, because I think with the amount of events that are possible that could come here, I mean, we could just go up and down the row.
You got to think every weekend they're going to have something.
Yeah.
Just
And-
about.
Yeah, but you know where things got a little sticky today was when, I forget who it was, I think I was still debating with a certain person.
The
on
high
Facebook.
impact study, right?
Well,
That's what they were
no,
talking
well,
about.
the part that they were talking about, pertaining to events, was that the stadium authority wants some control over, or some
Yeah,
review
okay.
process. They want a review process.
which I think they have a right,
Over
they should have a
events.
right.
And one of the events that they talked about, they said, well, look at all the money that New York left on the table by not doing UFC at Yankee Stadium, right? They want this process to be fair, and for the Raiders organization, which controls these events, to bring in those events that are going to bolster the city, bring the economy up.
Well, a lot of what we heard going into this process was complaints from people talking about how quickly everything was pushed through, as far as the $750 million, the Nevada state legislation just kind of throwing everything through as quickly as they could. And now that this lease agreement is kind of plodding along and taking its time and making sure that everything is where it needs to be, now we're hearing complaints on the other end that this isn't getting moved along quickly enough, which this isn't something you can just kind of slap together and then throw it out there and everybody's going to be okay. Like you said with the Arizona situation, you have to make sure that everything going forward is going to be in the right place. Otherwise, you have problems, and there's these loopholes where people can try to get out of their contract.
Well, it's an interesting situation also, because you have the stadium authority that's going to own the stadium, and the Raiders are going to be in charge of running the stadium
Right.
and events. So you want to be precise to make sure that everybody's on the same page now, before you move forward and get into a situation where you're trying to figure things out later. So, they have been. It has been a very rapid process, and sure, everybody wants to see shovels in the ground. I mean, we want to see that, but at the same time, we want to make sure this thing gets done right, because this is going to be a destination stadium for so many events, sports related and non-sports related, when it comes to things coming to Las Vegas.
Yeah, now, was there any movement today with UNLV's involvement in the lease agreement? No.
Well, I don't know if you overheard it, but they're making it a priority, and they said as much. They have a preliminary draft of the joint use agreement. I don't think they said they actually sat down with UNLV, and I'm not sure what the correspondence has been, if it's been conference calls or if there's been in-person meetings or what UNLV's involvement has been, but at least there's a preliminary draft. They're going to have a meeting next Thursday at 1 o'clock as well. Again, to plow through this, they need to have that lease agreement basically done by next Thursday so they can present it to the NFL in a couple weeks. And it's on the NFL's agenda for the owners' meeting, so the league wants to vote on this. A couple things that I wanted to just point out. I was tweeting so I wouldn't forget. Again, May 22nd is the owners' meeting. I mentioned the 12 agreements. 215 vendors have already registered through the Stadium Authority. More than half, it's about 140 of them, are local businesses or small businesses, and then nothing can move forward with the stadium until the FAA approval, I guess, comes through. And that
Yeah, and they
take
said
up
that
or it could be between 90 days
90
and a
days,
year.
yeah, and the first report that I had read was a 30-day process,
Right.
because I mentioned that on the show last week, so I was kind of surprised about the FAA process. Did you know that U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis took 32 months to complete? The new Falcon Stadium will take 39 months, 32-month schedule for the Rams Charger Stadium in Inglewood, which is scheduled to open in 2019. So
They
let's
don't
say
build
this-
stuff like we build
Yeah,
stuff.
I was going to
Yeah,
say,
I know.
who does construction better than Las Vegas?
That's our first point.
Well,
But did they? Will the Raiders be forced to spend another year in Oakland if this isn't ready?
Here's the problem with that, though. Like we talked about last week, they're set for this year in Oakland. Next year, they have the option to re-up in Oakland for another year.
not going
But that's
to.
the end of their 3-year lease agreement that they have with the Coliseum. They had 3-year agreement, 1-year option for each of those 3 years, and then beyond that, nothing. And the city clearly doesn't even want them anymore. I mean, that's not the fans. The mayor and everybody involved doesn't want them in Oakland anymore. So what is their option for 2019? I don't think Oakland's viable. I think they need to get here as soon as possible. And if that means making the necessary improvements to Sam Boyd Stadium to get that done, then get here ASAP.
Well, I mean, think about the money that is going to be spent on this lease with Oakland Coliseum.
$3.5 million this year
it's
alone,
going to go, it's going to go way higher, above and beyond what they're paying this year for 2017. So take that money, put it into Sam Boyd. I mean, I was just talking to somebody about this today, who is a little more in the know than I am, and it's what we've all been saying for a long time. No, Sam Boyd is not ideal. We get that, but if they
Someone's more in the know than this group? I don't know about that.
well, maybe just a little bit. But if they put the money in to make it usable for the 2 years, pave the parking lots,
Right.
Bring in portable, usable locker rooms that can be used for the games. I mean, it's very doable. And then if the Raiders buy that area, why not make that where their home
Right.
is? You know, I mean, they can do so much with that area. The Golden Knights are in the Northwest. Why not have the Raiders in the Southeast?
Sure. So I think that they, once the lease agreement is settled, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they wait until after this next season, but the parking lot and the locker rooms, I mean, you could do that in an off season, right? I think maybe maybe we get through this first year, Raider fan needs to get used to the fact that they're leaving, and then maybe it's next off season where the Raiders say, okay, this is what our plan is. We're going to renovate Sam Boyd. At least that's what I'd like to hear. If it's not that, then after the lease agreement gets settled, they should come out and say,
Yeah,
hey,
and we all know
we have
that
some
how many
contingencies.
times they've come out here to see
Right.
events at Sam
Exactly.
Boyd.
So
they came out for
you'd
the
think it'd
big
be
soccer
coming.
game. They came
Right.
out for. Were they there for Monster Trucks? Did you see them there?
I looked. I didn't see them anywhere. But I mean, they have. So when is the Vegas Bowl? Middle of December.
16th.
They essentially have from the middle of December until August
Yeah.
to get stadium done, to get the locker rooms done. That's more than enough time. You're
That's
looking
a
at
lot of
8
time.
months
Well, and I think-
to get really just a few things done.
Getting back to the stadium, the big project, I think Vegas is probably one of the only construction cities where T-Mobile Arena, they worked around the clock on
Yeah.
that thing. And I don't know what other cities do that, or if we're the only one.
And plus,
but again, if we can,
the
30
bad
months
weather
shouldn't be a problem.
The bad weather in Minneapolis, I
True.
mean, and they
True.
still did that in 32 months.
Yeah, so I don't think that accelerated time frame is.
Well, and you've
is a
heard the
big deal.
union say, we will work around the clock.
Oh, they're ready to go
they're-
right now, yeah.
They've
Hard
stand
hats
there
on.
with picks in hand,
I think
yeah.
they're out there in line already to put that first shovel in the ground.
They're ready to go.
Jeremy Aguero, and you know what? I'd love to. We've talked about getting him on the show, and we've actually reached out to him. Haven't coordinated that yet. I'd love to just spend a day with him because he knows everything about the project. You ask him a question and he answers it right away. It's pretty amazing. But besides that point, he said today, this will create the most capital of any stadium project in the country, recent stadium project. So I don't know what time frame he was saying with that. Whether it's the past 10 or 20 years, but this project here will generate more revenue than.
Well,
than
no
any
matter
other
what all the
project.
naysayers say, there's not a project out there that can compete with what Vegas has to offer as far as the number of people you have coming in every year, the tourists that are just flocking to this city every single day. No other project out there has what we have to offer. You're not building a stadium in Indianapolis or Minnesota where you're essentially hoping that all of your locals are going to be the ones that come in there. We have 43 million plus every single year that are coming in here that are going to help add to the revenue of that stadium. So it's a completely different market than anything they've ever seen.
But I don't think there's any panic on the board. I mean, there's a rush, but the board doesn't seem panicked. So all these deadlines and everything that's in place and the things that they need to get done, all signs point to they will get it done. I mean, they're going to have to rush, but it doesn't seem like anybody's hitting the panic button right now.
So for the Raider fans on the panel, and we have a freshly minted
three.
Raider
Three.
fan now.
Oh, sorry.
Three.
Look at
Three.
our new Raider Nation member
Give you
here.
one wagon now. In the
We got
not too
2.5.
distant future, I'll be wearing my Raider hat too. The over-unders came out this week, and the total
9.5,
is
is that
10. I saw
10?
10.
Oh, I thought
And
9.5.
I think this schedule's aggressive. What are your feelings on it?
It's-
10. Right now, I would say 9-win season.
It's,
me.
it's a tough schedule, but
But they'll win
if
16.
They're playing. No, they're not going to win 16 games. I'm a diehard, but I'm also extremely
16
realistic.
and 0.
And I've been all over their record for the last 3 years. I've been pretty spot on. they're a 10 or 11 win team in my opinion. They have a tough schedule. They have the NFC East and the AFC East, which obviously you're running a gauntlet there. But
Broncos.
the Broncos will still have quarterback
Obviously,
issues. Let's be honest. They brought in Jamal Charles, but what does he have left, and how long is he going to stay healthy on the field?
They have the mighty Jets in week 2.
And their defense is still decent. They should beat the Titans. They should beat the Jets.
Giants, Chiefs. Again, Chiefs is. I need to get used to the division.
Giants,
obviously,
I
know
home.
the Chiefs are in there.
Redskins on
So
the road.
over or under 10? Over or under 10?
Over.
It could be a push, but I would take the over because they're not going to be a 9-win team. Here's the thing about the Raiders that everybody needs to. The problem is they've been, for the last 14 years, not counting this last year, they've been garbage. They have been a 3 to 6 win team consistently. That's not what this team is anymore. So you can't look at the Raiders and just go, oh, they're crap. They've been terrible for 14 years. That's what they are. This is a legitimate team. They were 12-4 last year. Carr going down before the last game of the season. They still went 12-4. This is a legitimate Super Bowl contender, not just playoff contender.
Well,
this is a Super Bowl contender in the NFL.
You look at what they did last year. I mean, and to be realistic, of the 12 wins, I mean, you look at a 2-point conversion against New Orleans. You look at a few of these come from behind wins. They could have been. They were 12-4. They could have been 9-7. But you look at the team coming in this year, they are improved from what they were last year.
Especially defensively. Right.
Absolutely.
Which is
For sure. And as good as they were offensively, look at the tools they brought in the offseason. So this is a very good team. And unbiasedly, I would take the over because I think they win at least 11 games.
Well, to flip that around on you, yeah, they could have easily gone 9-7 because of the close wins that they had. At the same time, the year before they went 7-9, and everybody said the same thing in the reverse. They could have easily won 2 or 3 of those games. So this team, in 2 years, has learned how to take those close games and turn them into victories, and now have become an even better team going forward.
Well, and they had the awful scheduling last year with.
we could get a coffee break and come
I thought
back
the Raider
later.
fans at this point were a part of this.
These are things
Listen,
they're going to have to
you're right.
figure
You're
out
right. I
here
should
going
be
forward.
paying attention. Yeah.
All I asked was over or under 10 wins.
Sorry.
Over. I mean, if that's,
Over? How about you?
I would say 10.
I say
would
under. I say 9.
I would go over.
I say you're wrong, but
All
we'll
right.
see. We'll see in a few months.
I say you're a Jets fan and you're just bitter.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Jette, Jets.
Jeets. The Jeets. Let's move on to the
was trying to
Golden
spell
Knights.
cheater. That's
The
what he
Golden
was trying to
Knights. Can
spell.
we do that?
We can go to the Golden Knights.
Some news today on that front. The AHL announced that no additional teams will be added. So thus, the Vegas Golden Knights now will have to share a franchise with the Chicago Wolves, which so far has been a horrible experiment. It's gone bad because it hasn't worked out very well. Reed Duke hasn't even laced up his
Our
skates.
one player
Has
hasn't
he
even
played?
seen the ice yet.
Has he even seen the ice?
No.
No, he hasn't. Scratched every game as far as I know. Well, this is going to be interesting to see how it develops. I mean, they're not going to have it seems that they're not obviously going to have a full roster of an AHL team. And how many players do you have in the minors? It doesn't seem like they'll have that many. It seems like they're going to build from the top down. I get, baseball, you talk about how important a farm system is, right? And you build from the bottom up. But it seems like, at least in this scenario, you've got to build your NHL roster and then add pieces to go along. And hopefully, they just get some time on the ice, because that's what they need. So.
And within the last week, the Golden Knights signed another player, our second player, Vadim Shipachyov.
He's
forward.
good.
No, what was that? What was that last name?
Vadim Shipachyov.
I'm going to get a Shipachyov
This is
jersey.
how you say that.
But you're not
When
going to
the
be
shirts season coming out.
But you're
We'll
not going to be
call
able to do it
him
until
Ship on the
August
Ship.
now.
I've seen
We
our
will have a team
buddies
by then.
at
Sinbin?
Sinbin saying Shippy. We'll go with Shippy.
Either
going
Shippy or
forward.
Ship.
Yeah.
He's legit. Boy,
Yeah.
what a find.
So
I
this
mean,
this kid,
30
in
years old.
This season, the 2016-17 season with St. Petersburg, in 50 games,
Not Florida.
26 goals, 50 assists. He's got 76 points overall in 50 games. Seems like a legit player.
and let's point out the KHL. I mean, I don't know exactly what the comparison is, but you could easily say it's just as good as the NHL in a lot of ways. So if you can perform there, you can perform over here for sure.
Right.
It's a little bit more of a finesse game. I know Russia. Their style of play is different. He's a skill guy, right? And that's what you need, and that's what George McPhee talked about during the conference call where they signed him. And the 2-year window, They paid $4.5 million is a lot, I think, for an
Yeah, that's a
expansion
lot,
team.
right?
But they said the
rubles?
For a first-year player?
the 2 years that the contract is for, both sides are going to get to know each other, and then hopefully that 2-year contract turns into something.
And it sounded like he really wanted to be here on top of it.
Yeah,
He
and,
turned down
and it
more
could
money
lead
come
to another
Vegas.
player too, because there's a guy who plays on the same line over there.
Kovalchuk.
Go ahead,
Getting
pronounce it.
Tedorov.
We're going to have to really
that guy
work on
too,
our
yeah.
Russian, guys.
that
Kovalchuk
he
as well.
potentially could be part of this, and so they could have another player in all this, and who actually had better numbers, I think, than Chippy. I think we'll go with that.
So it begins.
So it begins. But it's interesting, though, as they start to accumulate players, and obviously it'll all be played out, starting on the 21st, but what style of play he's going to bring players in for. And I actually heard something crazy today about how in Washington they're not happy with Ovechkin and the contract because, he hasn't taken them where they want to go and they don't want to pay the $10 million. How about that
Leave him
idea?
unprotected.
How
Leave him
about
unprotected.
that idea?
If they're so unhappy with him, leave him unprotected,
That'd
and
be
we'll
something
pick him
else.
up in a month.
Because
I'd be fine with that.
money towards the cap. What is the salary cap in the NHL? 73?
It's that vicinity.
So, I mean, bring him in.
Yeah.
We talk about a splash coming in for a new franchise. I mean, you tie up a lot of money in one player, but still, I mean, I'll get an Ovechkin jersey for sure in August because we can't get the jerseys still.
And they do have to spend a certain amount. I mean, they have to. I forgot the number. At least 75% of the cap or 70% of the cap. So they do have to spend at some point. So he'd be a great guy to spend it on.
Someone asked me today, and I didn't know the answer. I still don't know the answer to the question. We know that in the NHL draft, that the Golden Knights will be selecting number 6, right? Sixth pick.
The worst possible pick that they could
The
have
worst
gotten.
one, but how many other draft picks do they have? Do we know the number of draft picks that they'll have?
We've been so concerned with the first round.
Yeah.
I haven't looked beyond that, to be
We're
honest.
going to have to come up with an answer. If you know, hit
Where's
us up.
Jason when we need him?
Yeah, I know, because that's going to be interesting. Do you get more draft picks if you're an expansion team, compared to all the rest of the field? Don't forget about the expansion draft, the NHL awards on June 21st down the street at the T-Mobile Arena. Our good friends from Sinbin have Section 7.
And 8, I heard. They
And now it
picked up 8.
expanded. Section 7 sold out. And so they're into Section 8 now. So those are all diehard, loyal fans. And that's where I'm going to sit. I still have to buy my ticket. So hopefully it doesn't-
$30 for the floor seats, right? Or no, I'm sorry.
No.
It's probably more than that, but it starts at $15.
$15 in Section
Yep.
7 and 8 up
Okay.
there. Yeah, so, well, you do some homework on that. You trying to find out?
No, I'm trying
how
to
many
find out.
draft
I don't think they have any more than any
you just
other
get-
team.
well, you
right,
just
but,
get one of the
but they're
first
going
round.
to get more because McPhee's going to, trade favors
Make
in
some
the
deals.
expansion draft for
Okay.
more draft picks. So.
Okay. So that's it so far on the Golden Knights. And on the 21st, it's going to be the first time we get a chance to see the team jersey on June
finally.
21st.
And do you know who brought Ovechkin into Washington?
George McPhee.
George McPhee.
George McPhee.
It's all lining up.
How about that?
There we go. Round and round we go. We've got some boxing news next. And that lopsided win, Canelo Alvarez, the recap, the win over Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.
Who knew
All right.
that?
Did anybody? Okay, we talked about it
We
last
just call
week.
him Junior.
Did anybody expect anything more than what we saw?
I expected Chavez to win one frickin' round on one judge's scorecard.
Shutout, yeah.
I really did.
We
What
don't
a
see that
joke.
too
I
often.
really did.
Yeah.
The entire hope was maybe he lands a punch and makes it interesting. But we've said it from day one. Chavez is very disinterested in everything that goes into training and preparing and being dedicated to the sport of boxing. He does it because of who his dad is and because he has that name behind him. He's not a dedicated fighter, and it shows every time he gets in the ring. And this was bound to be a very lopsided victory for Canelo.
Let me ask you this. Did Canelo carry Chavez Jr.? Did he carry him? Because I felt at certain stages of the
I
fight,
agree with that.
he could have taken him out. He
maybe.
needed the ring work, and he knew that they were going to have a press conference conveniently right after the fight.
didn't wanna take
Can
any
you
risk.
imagine
Triple
if,
G's
if
there, like
Chavez would have
Right, knocked
landed
him out.
That
one
one
lucky
lucky
punch
punch,
and
right.
knocked him
Put
out?
him out.
What would have happened to all the confetti in the press conference in the ring
what
that
a
was
mess.
planned for immediately after the fight?
Yeah.
How disingenuous was that?
At the
Right.
same time, though, Chavez refused to engage. He refused to engage in that fight. He
You're
really
the bigger,
never
you're the
opened
bigger
himself
and
up for
you have
anything.
more reach, and
Yep.
What has he been doing his whole career? Granted, now
That's
I don't.
what he's
I don't
been doing his
right.
whole
I don't
career.
pay attention to boxing as much as I mean, I've covered plenty of fights, but I don't know the game in and out. But when you have a size advantage on there, and you're not smart enough to realize that you have a size advantage, what are you doing in boxing?
His size advantage doesn't
Yeah.
make you the better
Right.
fighter, though, and that's the thing.
But you
is
can
Canelo,
intimidate a guy. I
Canelo
get
is the
it.
better fighter. Canelo's
Yeah.
not going to be intimidated.
Yeah.
That's not his style. And he went in there and just controlled the ring. I don't know that. I mean, I know a lot of people subscribe to that theory that he could have gone in there and taken him out whenever he wanted. But you have to open yourself up for those kinds of things. And Chavez wasn't willing to engage and open himself up to take that big shot. He stayed away. He covered up a lot. He only threw punches when Canelo decided to lay on the ropes and not really do a whole lot and kind of catch his wind. That's the only time you saw any kind of offense that was sustained from Chavez whatsoever. So I don't know that Canelo could have done a whole lot more than he did, other than just embarrass him. He doesn't like Chavez. They don't like each other in general. And he embarrassed him for 12 rounds, and he put himself above him in as far as the Mexican fighters are concerned.
And on Mexican Independence Day, what do I look for? A Mexican fighter on the bill. And we're going to have one. Hopefully the fight lands here in Vegas on September the 16th. It's going to be bedlam here, right? With Triple G against Canelo. What are the chances of Vegas landing this fight?
Well, they've already
They've
held
freed
the
up-
dates.
Yeah, they have the dates free at T-Mobile already.
T-Mobile and MGM, because
Yeah.
they like to do a night before, kind of a pre-fight
Undercards
card
and yeah.
at a different venue. So MGM is held for the Friday night, and then obviously T-Mobile is reserved for the Saturday night. And this is not going to be Mayweather Pacquiao. This is not going to be Chavez Canelo. This is going to be a legitimate fight. This is going to be two guys going in there and going after each other. You have two guys that love to come forward, that love to throw punches with power in both hands, and they both have legitimate knockout power. We all know what Triple G has in his fist. This is going to be a phenomenal fight. This is the one everybody's been calling for the last 2 years now. And in that 154, 160 pound range, this is the marquee fight going forward.
So they're going to fight as middleweights, though.
Most likely, that'll be 160.
Yeah, 160.
I'd imagine.
Can we take a step back and talk about we mentioned it, but when's the last time boxing had a pre-planned, I mean, it was like it was on the big screen in T-Mobile. I don't know if they showed it on the broadcast. When is the last time boxing has had a super fight scheduled right after a fight? Because I can't remember it. It's
Not
always,
in
I got to
the
talk
ring.
to my
I
team.
mean,
Right.
usually
I've
when we
never
get to
seen
the
it.
press conference, back.
I was stunned. I mean,
Yeah.
frankly, I was stunned. And we captured it live.
you were
I had
live
it on
for it.
Facebook
Well done.
Live.
Great
so
job,
you
by
can
the
go
way.
to the Sports Adrenaline Facebook page and just see what happened.
That was
But I
cool.
was stunned.
Thanks for
I
doing
was
that.
stunned.
That was-
I
that
didn't
was
expect
awesome.
it. I was just in there after the fight. And I'm like, whoa, what's happening here?
there was no buzz on press row that this was about to happen? So
I
they kept it
you know
quiet?
what? I wasn't on press row, obviously, but I did hear rumors going into the fight that after the fight, it was expected that it was going to be announced. I didn't know that it was going to be with that kind of fanfare, obviously, but there were rumors floating around that the fight would be announced once this fight was over.
Oscar De La Hoya said this week that he feels as though Floyd Mayweather should fight the winner of that bout.
I think you need to dismiss Floyd at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's going after, the
A joke
Thunder
of a
Lips
fight,
style
yeah.
fights now. Rocky versus Thunder Lips.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an exhibition what he's doing with Conor McGregor. You're fighting a guy that doesn't even have a professional record. I mean, what's the point?
And
I think you
Mayweather's
should
going
dismiss
into
him.
the Southern Nevada Sports Hall of Fame, so once you're there, you don't fight anymore.
Clearly.
I personally don't want Floyd to fight again. I just want him to retire undefeated, but that one driving force money gets him all the time, right?
Yeah, and that's what's driven him this entire time, because he's stayed away from the marquee fights at the prime time to take those marquee fights. He's been a businessman more than he's been an elite fighter. He's a phenomenal defensive fighter and a great skilled boxer, but he hasn't been willing to step in there and be that quote unquote blood and guts warrior, a la Arturo Gatti, and really stand toe to toe and fight somebody.
He hasn't had a great offensive fight, I don't think, since Ricky Hatton.
Yeah.
I mean, was there a fight after that Floyd had a great offensive
Even
but
the
one
Victor
thing I know-
Ortiz fight was a knockout, and that was
Yeah.
kind of a sucker punch when the referee was kind of trying to break him
Break
up,
him
and
up,
Ortiz
sure.
is trying to apologize,
Yeah,
and
right,
Floyd
right.
just runs over and throws the punch and
Was
knocks
that
him out.
staged
So
now, knowing what we know in boxing?
Who knows?
But
Would it-
my
would it
thing is,
surprise
so
you?
I've watched Floyd every fight, and I've seen several fights live. I've seen several of his fights live and up pretty close to the ring. And I'll tell you one thing about Floyd. I don't think people understand this. Yes, great defensive fighter, but so many times he backs off when he gets a guy in trouble. He'll double up on his punch. Guy will back up, knees will buckle, he'll back up so he doesn't expend any more energy. I think he's one of the smartest fighters I've ever seen in the ring.
And
He's
in
very
the ring
crafty.
he is.
I think
he's
he
a
deserves some
tactician
credit for that.
and he's
Oh, he does.
he's great at what he does. And we get caught up in it every single time a Floyd Mayweather fight would come up. The hype before it, everybody seemed to forget what they're excited about because it's a
Because
Floyd
there's
Mayweather fight.
There's so much hype. He does such a good job of promoting
Sure,
himself.
sure. But he is what he is. I mean, you knew what you were going to get. You knew when Diego Corrales went into the ring, you were going to get a war. You knew when Mike Tyson went into the ring, you might see something completely vicious. But when Floyd Mayweather got in the ring, you knew what you were going to see. And I don't know why we continued to be surprised by it, even in the Manny Pacquiao fight. I mean, did we really think we were going to see that? I mean,
No.
Manny got inside on him one time and landed a couple good punches, and we were like, "Oh my goodness, is he going to be in trouble?" And he wiggled his way out, and brilliant fighting, because it's self-preservation, but he doesn't put himself out there. It's just not his style.
But that's why he waited to fight Manny as long as he waited to fight him, because younger Manny, in his prime Manny, doesn't let Floyd get out of that situation. Younger Sugar Shane Mosley doesn't let Floyd get out of
Or two, and would go in with his hands down and just try
He
to
did,
wail
but
on somebody.
how much better of a fight would that have been if
Oh, sure.
if he was willing to engage more and Floyd?
Fights, having watched him in his amateur days, having sat there and experienced all of it all. So
Well, forget about Floyd, because I think Oscar wants to hype that fight up, because the winner coming out of this fight is going to be. There's no way
I don't
he's
think he
going to
wants
go up to
Canelo
160
again. I don't think he wants
No.
Canelo
He
again.
doesn't. He fought Canelo
He
when
fought him
Canelo
at
was
the perfect
23
time.
years
That's
old
right.
and
Fought him
still
at the right
coming
time.
up and not quite ready.
He wasn't
and
ready
knew
for
that.
that. Yeah.
And there's no way he steps into the ring with a guy as dangerous as Triple G, because Triple G is going to knock his head off his shoulders, and he knows that. So no matter what happens coming out of this fight, Floyd is going to be irrelevant. He's going to go fight his little exhibition. He's going to destroy Conor McGregor unless McGregor, goes full MMA on him and snaps his arm. And it's going to be a complete
That'd be a
waste of
story.
time. It's going to be a fun.
Top of the list, Dwayne Morgan suspended indefinitely following a dispute last weekend with the cabbie. And the first question that arose was,
Very valid question.
was whether or not this is an incident that will lead to Morgan's dismissal from the team, because UNLV is one scholarship player over right now. They have to cut someone, and I think that might be unfair. Let's get all the information, because we didn't see a lot of what happened, in the police reports that we read, and just, give him an opportunity. But we know one thing about Marvin Menzies. He has said that he goes out and recruits players that are honorable citizens, right? And let's see what he does in a situation like this. But sad news, because I like Dwayne. I
thought the question you were going to ask is, you're a New Yorker, you get into cabbies.
Oh.
You get into it with cabbies all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Was
I
this
said-
a normal
Right,
cabbie?
right.
I'm sure it wasn't, but
Yeah, I mean,
Everything
yeah.
we read, it
The
was
first
just
thing,
talking,
my first
right?
response was, who doesn't get into a dispute with the cabbie?
there it is. That was
That's
the
what I
question.
said.
I thought very valid. Your question that you actually stated about whether or not he's staying on the team, very valid as well.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But again, we don't know a lot, so they're launching an investigation. And what does this investigation involve? Are they bringing in the cabbie? Like we said, the police reports didn't say a lot, and we don't know about any physical altercations. That doesn't lessen that Dwayne got arrested, arrested, and there's a mugshot of him. But we'll see where it goes. Does it play out? What's your gut here? There was a scholarship over, and the media has made it clear. Every article that we've read that hey, UNLV is one over.
Yeah, you have to just find all the information, weigh all the facts, and then figure that out.
Well, you hope
And-
that has nothing to do with this.
Yeah,
You
you
really
would hope
do.
so.
Yeah.
You really
You hope
do.
this has absolutely nothing to do with that.
Yeah, based on their merit, what they've done. Poor Dwayne has had just a variety of injuries and hasn't really been able to play up to his potential. So everyone was hoping that this would be the year.
He showed flashes at the beginning of last season.
Yeah,
I mean, he
yeah.
was averaging 9 and 7 after his first couple of years, only averaging like 5 and 3, 5 and 5, something like that. And I think he was one of him and Poyser were the two returners, and I think he kind of felt like he had a role. And I felt bad for him when he went down again, because he was playing well. I think he felt that leadership role on that team.
Well, and that's what I was going to bring up is that, I'm right on the sidelines shooting with my camera all these games, and Dwayne was the guy on the bench firing up the team throughout all these games, all these tough games that we watched throughout the season. He always had a great attitude, even in street clothes, and he was the one firing up the bench. So he did really embrace that leadership role, even though we didn't play the majority of the
The
season.
thing about this is we just, like you mentioned earlier, we don't have any details. I mean, you have this disorderly conduct charge and nothing else to go on other than, he had an argument. Already suspended indefinitely. We don't know where that's going to go. We don't know if that's going to involve any actual in-season game suspensions. I would imagine that has to do with what happens with this charge going forward. But as of right now, it's just kind of a big up-in-the-air mystery. Nobody knows where this is going to go.
Hey, there was some great news this week, too, for Ben Carter. He was
Yes.
granted an
Congrats to him.
additional year of medical
Sixth
redshirt.
year.
Sixth year.
He's 30 by the time he's done
Super
playing
senior.
college
I actually
ball.
ran into Ben over at, I was meeting with somebody over at Phase One Sports. Shout out to Mike Waters and Phase One Sports. Saw Ben over there, and we got to catch up. And it was neat seeing him because he was genuinely, there was a lot of relief, more so relief than excitement, I think. I mean, of course, he's very excited. But there was a lot of relief with him because he's been through a couple really tough things. When he went down with the knee injury here, it was horrific. It was awful. And then having things not go exactly as planned over at Michigan State. But he's going to get that next year. He's just a fixture in college basketball now. I hope the best for him. I really do, because give him a full season. He is a leader on and off that court, and he's a good kid. He's a really good kid. So I wish the best for him, absolutely.
Yeah, let's hope that he stays healthy in this his sixth year. Some football news from campus. Hey, the Rebels have a safety that was a grad transfer from Syracuse. So UNLV football now has one scholarship left, and they're expected to spend that scholarship on another grad transfer and another player for the secondary, I think. But we officially welcome Chauncey Sissom. Chauncey Sissom from Syracuse, who's a safety, who
That was quite a story.
Yeah,
took a
quite
pretty-
a story.
Yeah, it was a really difficult road for him through Syracuse, and luckily he lands here to where hopefully the UNLV family will embrace him.
Oh, I think they will. I mean, just the fact that he's playing football is quite a miracle. I mean, he was attacked by another teammate, stabbed 4 to 6 times in the upper torso, shoulder, lower face,
neck.
In
Yeah.
the neck, and the chest, and the arm, and his lip. So
yes,
4
and
times.
I mean, the report says that if a teammate hadn't gotten him to the hospital as quick as they did, he may have bled out. So I mean, just the fact that he
Lucky to be
survived
alive more so than
and,
even playing
and made
football
it
at
back
this
to
point.
the field is quite a story in and of itself. But he says he's very excited to be a Rebel. We're excited to have him. He's got good size, 6'1", 205 in the defensive secondary. When we just lost two defensive secondary guys with that kind of size, with Troy Hawthorne and Kenny Keys. So you bring him in, and if they're able to bring in somebody else to shore up that defensive secondary, that would be huge for the Rebels right now.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be a contributor here, for the Rebels this season, because that was the one troubled area, as you mentioned.
Sure.
Coach Sanchez has his football camps coming up. We need to mention June 11th, 17th, 18th. Go to TonySanchezFootballCamps.com for more information. And then prior to us coming on the air tonight, we were taking a look at the free agent signings and players that have they've got workouts coming up with NFL teams. So there's a lot of them out there. Jeremiah Valawanga with the Lions. Torrey McTyer actually got a free agent contract the day after the draft
With the
Dolphins. Talu Talali, that's an interesting story. He has a tryout with the Colts. And then Will Kreitler, I saw this week with the 49ers, is expected to be invited to camp. So it's pretty good for our players.
Rebels getting out there. We need to see the more exposure you get from UNLV on the NFL field, the better it's going to be going forward with the Fertitta complex opening up and the stadium opening up. That, in my opinion, just boosts recruiting. The more visibility you have out there, the more often you see that UNLV name come up, the more kids are going to recognize and want to come out here.
It's got to be hard for these kids, though, just trying to go in as an undrafted free agent because the market is so saturated. And, right, we're talking about, and everybody's pretty stunned, Lo Tulele. We've seen him play, Can he take it to the next level? Don't know. But, he certainly deserves a shot in a camp, right?
Yeah.
And does this fall on the agent? I mean, is it more about relationships than about ability? So I feel bad for a guy like him. Hopefully he catches on with the Colts.
Well, I was
and
wrong
does
because
well.
I thought he might get taken in the late rounds, and deservedly so. I mean, with what he showed on the field, I mean, he's got a nose for the ball. He doesn't have blazing speed, but he plays his position very well. And I thought that he'd be a nice addition, for a team. Hopefully he catches on with the Colts or gets seen by somebody. That happens a lot when you have these free agent signees. They may not get picked up by the team that they go in for, but suddenly they have a little more on their resume, and a team in need, as the camps roll on and there are injuries and so forth. So hopefully he'll get a shot and land on a team. I think that
a good kid,
he's
too.
deserving, absolutely, and he is a good kid. He's a real good kid.
UNLV Golf, the number 3 seed at the West Lafayette, Indiana region. The top 5 teams in each region make it to the championship round, and the regional start on Monday, and it goes through Wednesday. And then the women's golf team finished 14th in the Lubbock Regional. That concluded just yesterday. First round, I think they were in 10th, and then 14th after
it's too bad.
14. Yeah, so, but nonetheless, back-to-back Mountain West champions, and things are
For both
looking great
programs.
for both programs.
Yeah, that's great.
And I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, but 29 straight trips to the regionals for the men's, the Swingin' Rebels.
Can't beat that.
Best in the NCAA. So I had to sit down with Dwayne Knight. This is probably last off season. I sat down with him for like a half hour and taped an interview with him, and just what keeps you going and why you're still doing this. And he says he's chasing down another title. He wants to win another one. So is this the team to do it? I mean, when you're a 3 seed in a region, you obviously have a legit shot. You're a top 15 team. But Harry Hall, great season. John Oda, Mountain West Player of the Year. Shintaro Ban, I think he's still on the roster. So these kids have performed out throughout the season. So we'll see what they do. Hopefully they rise to the occasion.
And I tell you, Dwayne he knows what he's doing out here, and he's been doing it for a long time. And to go with your point, John, it's very unheralded coach. He's a very quiet man, just does what he does, but one of the nicest individuals you'll meet. And he'll give you time. You ask him for time, and people forget that he was second in line to have Tiger come here if he didn't go to Stanford. UNLV was second on his list. So the legitimacy of the UNLV golf program is something else. It really is. It'll be a nice addition to the Pac-12 someday.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Matt, I think it's time to get into our monster truck update. And
do we have a graphic? That's what I want to know, Rich.
Is there
Do we need anything more than this?
there it is. Is there a lease agreement in place yet for the new Raiders Stadium with monster trucks?
Coming in 2020.
I mean, if you're
Or that they might jump in the dirt lot out there right now.
if you're Monster Jam, wouldn't you move to the new stadium? I mean,
Should we change this to Monster Jam instead of monster trucks?
yeah, why not?
This is an inside joke for those of you watching. that are
right.
like,
Yeah,
what the
it
hell are they
never
talking about?
seems to
No,
end.
no,
It
yeah.
never ends.
Never ends. Yeah. Final thoughts, gents. Start at the end there with Rick.
Start with me.
Yeah.
My final thoughts. The NBA playoffs have been horrible. Absolutely awful.
We haven't talked about them at all
Yeah,
until you mentioned them.
and I am.
That's how bad
Yeah.
they've been. We haven't even talked about it.
These are my final thoughts,
Yeah.
guys.
Hey, wait a second. Wait. Okay,
But at
go.
the same time, on the flip side of that, how good have the NHL playoffs been? It's so compelling. It seems like every time teams take the ice, if you're a true hockey fan, you're watching during the regular season, but not if you're a casual fan. You don't watch a whole lot, but you get enthralled during the postseason, and this postseason has not disappointed for the NHL. Game 7 last night between the Oilers and Ducks was compelling. You got a team in Nashville that's playing lights out and could win the whole thing. You've got some great things in the NBA. What do you have? You've got a lot of blowouts. You got a lot of lopsided games. You got a lot of disinterest, and you got the Cavs and Warriors that are going to play in the finals. So you might as well just put them there anyway, and it'll get compelling then. But the place to watch this postseason, has been the ice. And I'm not just saying that because we're getting a team. It's been very disappointing to watch the NBA playoffs, and I've enjoyed the ice a lot more.
First of all, if you notice, John's wearing his Vin Scully Dodger shirt.
This
and
will be the only Dodger shirt you'll ever see me wear.
he was kind enough. He went to Game 3 last year in the NLCS where the Dodgers actually won a game, and he brought me
Hold it up there.
this. And I just
I
want
thought of you, Matty.
I just want to thank him because he's a diehard Cubs
are
fan,
you
and he
tearing
brought that for me. And even though we lost, I'm going to hang on to
Did
that.
you lose
So
a
I
bet
like
to wear that?
very much.
I just love the shirt. I love Vin. Come on.
You gotta, it's like
doesn't
Harry
love him?
Carey. I mean, you got to love him,
Legitimately,
right?
I'm a diehard Cubs fan. If anybody gives me crap about wearing a Vin Scully shirt,
You
that's
can't.
fine.
You
Yeah.
can't. Just to kind of recap that, we were talking about boxing, and I'm a big boxing fan. We have Kell Brook and Errol Spence coming up for the welterweight title in May. It's going to be in England. This is going to be a huge fight. The winner of this fight is looking at probably Keith Thurman. Might even be looking at Sean Porter. You might have Porter and Thurman going against each other. I know boxing doesn't get the run that it probably should get, but you're looking at a time now that takes me back to early 2000s, late 90s, or if you even go back into the 80s for the more old school boxing fans, and you have some really phenomenal fighters that are hanging out basically around that 135 up to about 160 pound fight weight. Phenomenal fights coming up here. If you can, jump into the boxing scene a little bit. Welterweight, middleweight, all the way down to the lightweights, and even now with the heavyweights, with Joshua and Wilder and Klitschko still hanging in there. A lot of really great boxing matches to be had out there. So try to pay attention to that. This is the city to be in if you want to pay attention to boxing. Obviously, that was kind of our first professional sport, if we were ever going to have a professional sport, until Bill Foley did what he did and brought the Knights here. So going forward, pay attention. You got Errol Spence and Kell Brook coming up here from England at the end of May. Going to be a phenomenal welterweight fight for the title. Pay attention to that.
I wanted to talk about Kaepernick. Don't know if I necessarily have a full position on this because I understand both sides of the argument. I understand why a team wouldn't want to, or an owner wouldn't want to bring them on the roster. But I saw a picture today about all the free agent quarterbacks that have been signed and the contracts they've been signed to, and it's comical. You have Mike Glennon, 3 years, $45 million. Brian Hoyer, 2 years, $12 million. Brian Hoyer, Nick Foles, 2 years, $11 million. Josh McCown, 1 year, $6 million. Landry Jones, $4 million. Matt Barkley, $4 million. Case Keenum, $2 million. Mark Sanchez, really excited for Chicago to get him $2 million.
But fumble.
And this guy can't find a job. So, again, I understand both sides, but him not being in the mix for positions kind of irks me a little bit. And it's a talker. I think it's worth noting. Is he being blackballed? Is that the proper term? I don't know if I have a full opinion on that, because I understand both sides of it. But with these numbers that I saw, it's certainly worth mentioning and wondering why he's not getting an offer from somebody.
If the Raiders, if the lease agreement has to be completed in 11 days, I'm hoping that the Stadium Authority and the Raiders can start to work around the clock, just as if this were the construction phase, to get this delivered in the timely fashion. They need to outpace this timeline. And if you've seen that timeline, it's just very concise, and there's so many different posts that they really have to hit. Steve Hill calls Mark Bedane the land baron. I don't know if that's a positive or a negative term. I didn't argue with anyone on Facebook about that term today, but
Well, one thing.
that's going to be his new moniker there. And UNLV, I'm still unclear as far as what the lease agreement will say for the Rebels and for the football program, and if there's any other uses for the stadium for UNLV. When everyone talks about the stadium, they talk primarily about Rebel football, but there has to be graduations and maybe some other events, so there has to be some other events that could be staged in there. Rebel basketball, if that continues to grow to new heights, then maybe there's a game played there, in the wintertime inside the dome. So I'm just hoping that the Raiders and the Stadium Authority start to accelerate things on their end, because 11 days away, that's a very short window, and I hope that they have a lot of work completed already. So that's it. Thanks,
Can we
guys.
talk? Well, can we talk about Matt being drunk? I realized this after the fact.
Good Lord.
Maddie came in a little, but there's a legitimate reason for it. But I didn't want to mention it.
So
'cause
what
you-
is the reason?
You had
Here you are
You had some
mentioning it.
erroneous Twitter posts.
So what did he
which were
say on
quite
Twitter
humorous.
tonight?
But you're a
Look.
wine buyer, so I get it.
I sit down all day on Thursday and I get to
so
meet
it's
with
part of your
reps and I
job.
get to taste wine. It is part of my job.
Yeah,
The
and I'm
most
sure you sobered up before
fun
you drove
part of
over
my
here.
job. And yeah, I was fine. I happened to have 2 windows open on my phone when I got here. One of them being our messenger between each other.
Right.
The other one being Twitter. I needed to get in the front door. Nobody was there, and I tweeted out that I was in, as opposed to messaging out that I was in.
It's
so
breaking
I
and
think you
entering.
also-
I'm
Yeah.
surprised the cops didn't
In
show
your
up.
drunkenness, I think you also tweeted out that the Raiders will win under 10 games. Under 10 games.
pretty sure I didn't do that. No. Taking the over.
Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in
This
right
comes
here
from John,
on.
who admittedly said he looked homeless.
Shoots-
Yeah, we didn't mention that until now. Thank you.
We'll be back again right here next Thursday night at the same time at 7 o'clock.
Ish.
For Rick, for Matt, for John. I'm Tony Cardasco. I'm Tony, not Cardasco.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks
Let
for
us know
tuning
what you
in.
think about the new website.
Yeah, take care, everyone. We'll see you
Thanks,
next
guys.
week.
This portion of Sports Adrenaline Las Vegas brought to you in part by Livia's Seasoning Salt, the perfect combination of kosher salt, black pepper, and garlic. Livia's Seasoning Salt, every kitchen, every table, every meal.